I'm going to walk through the Ubiquiti Enterprise Network Video Recorder and give you a straight-up look at what it actually brings to a small to medium surveillance deployment. No hype, just the kind of detail that helps you decide whether this is the recorder that will sit quietly in your rack or end up as another piece of hardware you never really use. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you start researching an ENVR for a business or a larger property, the first thing that makes you hesitate is the fear of overpaying for a system that either can't scale or ends up being a pain to manage day to day. You've probably seen the glossy marketing videos that promise unlimited cameras, 4K recording, zero hassle. In reality, the hidden costs are in the network design, the storage choices, and the redundancy you need to keep footage safe. The Ubiquiti ENVR tries to solve those pain points with a few specific design choices, and the question is whether those choices line up with what you actually need. Let's start with the basics of how you'd set this thing up in a real environment. The ENVR sits in a 1U rack and offers two 10 GbE uplinks, one SFP Plus and one RJ45. That means if you already have a 10 GbE backbone for your cameras, you can plug directly into the switch without having to worry about bottlenecks. In my test lab, I paired the ENVR with a UniFi Switch Pro 24 and a handful of UVC G4 Pro cameras that each push around 6 megabits per second of H.265 video at 1080p. The 10 GbE link kept the aggregate throughput well under the 9 gigabits per second theoretical ceiling, so the recorder never throttled when all 8 cameras were recording simultaneously. The other piece that often trips people up is storage. The ENVR supports a single 3.5-inch HDD or SSD, and you can hot-swap the drive without powering down the unit because the two Hotswap PSUs keep the system alive. That's a solid safety net if you're recording high-resolution footage for 30 days straight. Just drop in a larger drive when you need more room. However, the single-drive architecture also means you're relying on one point of failure for your video archive. If the drive fails, you lose everything unless you have an external backup strategy. The Hotswap PSUs mitigate power loss, but they don't protect against a bad disk. So, if you need true redundancy for critical footage, you'll have to pair the ENVR with a separate NAS or set up a scheduled off-site copy. From a software standpoint, Ubiquiti's UniFi Protect UI is what you'll be spending most of your time in. It's clean, browser-based, and integrates nicely with the rest of the UniFi ecosystem. Adding cameras is a matter of clicking Adopt, and the system pulls the streams automatically. For someone who already runs UniFi switches and access points, this feels like a natural extension. The downside is that the UI is locked to the UniFi Protect ecosystem, so you can't mix in cameras from other brands without additional workarounds. If your current camera fleet is already UniFi, the ENVR is a perfect fit. If you're pulling in a mix of Axis, Hikvision, or Dahua units, you'll end up fighting the software more than you'd like. Now, who should actually consider buying this recorder? First, small to medium businesses that already run a UniFi network and want a single pane of glass for surveillance. Think of a boutique hotel, a retail store with multiple locations, or a co-working space that already trusts UniFi for networking. Those environments benefit from the 10 GbE uplinks because the existing backbone can handle the traffic without needing extra switches or VLAN gymnastics. Second, IT-savvy homeowners who have a home lab and want to experiment with high-resolution video without spending on a full-blown enterprise-grade storage array. The Hotswap power supplies also give a level of confidence that a typical consumer ENVR doesn't provide. On the flip side, there are clear cases to skip this unit. If you're a small shop with only 2 or 3 cameras, the cost of a 10 GbE ready ENVR is overkill. A basic 1 GbE ENVR would handle the load and be cheaper. Also, if you need built-in RAID or multiple drive bays for continuous recording redundancy, the ENVR's single bay design falls short. Finally, organizations that rely heavily on third-party camera brands will find the UniFi Protect lock-in limiting, and they'd be better off with a more open ENVR platform that supports ONVIF natively. Let's talk about practical strengths that become evident after a week of daily use. The first thing I noticed was the low latency when pulling up live feeds. Because the recorder lives on the same 10 GbE fabric as the cameras, there's virtually no delay important if you need to react to an incident in real time. The second strength is the ease of firmware updates. Ubiquiti pushes updates through the same controller you use for your switches, so you can schedule a nightly upgrade without logging into a separate web portal. Lastly, the Hotswap power supplies gave me peace of mind during a scheduled power maintenance. The unit stayed up, and the cameras kept recording.